It was a cold, bleak, white Wednesday night many years ago, and I was leaving for work. My job was a graveyard shift in the store of ill repute. I cut through the Jesuit university I lived next to. They had a cool campus, and it was a shortcut for me. I stopped into the cafeteria that they kept open every day of the year. I loved it for that. I grabbed a bland hot chocolate and an empty tray. I walked out with the orangey red tray tucked under my arm like it was my study guide. No one ever said a thing to me when I did this. I left and marched on through the snow with the tasteless hot cocoa, keeping my left hand warm through my glove. When it lost its heat, I threw it in an overflowing trash can, one of many that lined the streets then. As I approached Denny Hill, I looked down at the people and at the city. Cars passed behind me, but Denny was closed. There was too much snow. People had been attempting to sled down it and play in it all day. They'd left sled marks and trash from their little picnics at the top, but now it was getting late, and it was just me and the hill. I checked the straps on my backpack and buttoned the top of my jacket. I set the tray on the ground. Just for a moment, it looked like a flame against the white, still falling snow, and I paced back and forth, looking for the perfect spot, looking for the best spot, and I found it. I grabbed my tray and down I went. I couldn't help it. I let out a whoop as I went down the double-barreled hill on my tray sled. Faster and faster. I worried about someone trying to drive up the slope, but I had a brief moment of thinking that all people would be rational enough not to try, and I also had a moment of relief, knowing that the city had put up barriers so no cars could enter either end of the street, and I felt safer for that for some reason. I shouldn't have, but I did. By some mixture of miracle and leaning the steer, I was able to turn at 7th Street, just barely. I was less than 20 yards away from an awning that protected the entrance to the place where I worked. The owner, a big muscular man with a lisp, was standing in the doorway. He saw me sledding, and his eyebrows let me know that he was baffled. I stood up, I grabbed my tray and once again tucked it under my arm, and I walked up. "Evening, boss man," my usual greeting to him whenever he dropped in. "Where'd you get the tray?" "In the cafeteria." I figured everyone knew about the cafeteria, why not? He told me to turn around and go home. "We don't close," I told him. "We never close." He shrugged. "It's Christmas Eve." I looked at the snow. It felt like it was auditioning for a family movie about the meaning of something. It was ironic to have it outside a store like that one, a store of ill repute, across the street from a hospice nonetheless. "It's Wednesday," I replied. His eyebrows went their own ways, and he told me to go home. He wished me a Merry Christmas. I wished him a Happy Hanukkah. I walked towards the bus stop, but I didn't see any buses on the street. I barely saw any cars, and I finally was able to wave down a cab. The entire ride home, the Italian driver smoked a cigarette in one of those Cruella de Vil holders. It was huge, and he had his window all the way down so that the smoke didn't fill up the cab. The snow still came in, though. It was still coming down, it still came in. I don't know how he kept his cigarette lit to this day. I only guess his talent. Pure talent. Finally home, I undressed as I went inside, stripping layer after cold and wet layer off of me, and leaving them like breadcrumbs. From my room, I grabbed a few layers of pajamas and blankets, and I went to the bay window that was in the common area of the place I shared with 3 other people. I climbed out onto the covered stoop and wrapped myself up like a present. was more like a burrito, actually. The church down the street had been preparing for a while for a multicultural Christmas Mass. People of all faiths and religions, backgrounds, regions, countries, beliefs came together to celebrate their own beliefs and everybody else's as Christmas, of course. It went on for nearly 24 hours. It was amazing. From my perch, I could hear a group singing Silent Night. The snow fell. The people sang. And for the most part, the city was still. It was like magic. Not bad for a Wednesday night.